Welcome to the Zaffie Show on Public Access, Channel 3 in Biddeford and Channel 85 in Saco. We're happy to be here today and hope that you will join us. It's snowing today, and it's pretty, but the roads are very slippery. I came the back way, and that was a big mistake, but I made it. We've been talking about TV, and I was a few minutes later than I would normally be because I was watching what was going on in Paris, and I think it's very sad, and I feel concerned and mixed up, and I really don't know what to do about it, and I guess none of us do, or we'd do something. And now I would like to introduce my guests. I don't know how they got here. They were brave. And we have Monica Grabin.
Correct.
She is a musician educator. Is that the way you'd say it?
That's what I would say, yes.
And I got on my computer this morning and checked her out because I didn't know her. She has a wonderful background. She has a beautiful voice. She's very peppy. And you know each word she's saying, and you remember it. And we'll get back to her in a few moments. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. And we have Reverend Lara Campbell.
Yep.
And she is First Parish, a Reverend of the First Parish Universalist Unitarian Church in Kennebunk.
Yep.
Boy, I deserve an A+.
I know, it's a mouthful, isn't it? It's a very long title.
Would you tell us how you decided to become a reverend?
Sure.
Because you're a lady.
I am. I'm part of a congregation and part of a denomination that has ordained many, many women. In fact, the Universalist part of our history was one of the first denominations to ordain women back in the 1800s. And so for me, I had a female minister growing up as an adolescent, and it was definitely a role model, an important part of my life. I was very active in my youth group and very involved in church activities. And I was in graduate school, actually, working on a PhD in family therapy when I was volunteering at church, and I was spending all of my time there. And I thought, you know what, maybe this is something I should pursue. So I left the PhD program. I finished my master's degree, but left the PhD program and moved across the country. I was in Michigan at the time, moved across the country to New Jersey and lived in a congregant's basement and was a youth advisor for a year, and then became the director of a Sunday school program outside of New York City. Did that for about 9 years while I was going to seminary, and I feel like I sort of chose it, but I think it chose me more than anything else.
That's great.
Yeah, and certainly has been fabulous coming up here to Kennebunk. The congregation, we have a long process in terms of being what's called or chosen by the congregation. So the congregation actually had to vote me in. I wasn't appointed. They had to decide that they wanted me as their minister, and I've been delighted and grateful to be here with them.
That's an honor.
Yes, a huge honor, especially in such a historic church in the center of town.
Years and years ago, though, didn't they have women reverends and ministers way, way back?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Yep, there have been. Like I said, my faith has been ordaining since the 1800s. And now we're a little bit more, we're slightly more women in the ministry than men.
Can't believe that.
Slightly more. We're not it's just a little bit over 50% of the women, or of the ministers are women. So.
I like that.
Well, I'm glad.
I shouldn't say that. And would you tell us a little bit about your background? I know it's great,
Sure.
your resume.
I actually was in upstate New York as well. I grew up outside of Peekskill, New York. And I came from a very musical family, although I went to a Catholic school, so we did not have music in the school. So I didn't have formal training at all. But when I was, I guess I was just sort of alert when I was a little girl, because around 12, which seems very young, I discovered folk music, and it was just such a change from what I was hearing on the radio. It was so monumentally different, and I really went looking for more than just Peter, Paul, and Mary. I found a lot of wonderful music, so I got very involved in this music. Then I went on, did various things. I was a hippie. I dropped out of college, whatever. But when I was in my 30s, we came to Maine because my husband is was one of the owners of the former Renaissance greeting cards in Sanford. So we came up here for that. And when after working there for a while, I decided when my second child was born that I would stay home. And I was just trying to think, what should I be doing? I wanted to do something. And I had all these wonderful songs, and I realized that even my own children didn't really relate to these songs. And one of the reasons that they didn't is because they didn't know what the heck they were about. Now, when I was young, I don't think I really knew what they were about either, but it was just so much part of this whole world that I lived in, sing-alongs and everything. That was just normal, that somehow it worked for me, but it wasn't working for them. And I had a wonderful experience in high school. If you don't mind my taking a moment, it was...
Love to hear it.
I would love every teacher to hear this story. So what happened was I was studying advanced placement world history. And I think it was a 2-year course. So I probably was a junior in high school when this happened. And my history teacher, Mr. Warren, very young, vibrant kind of guy, we were learning about World War I. And he brought in a record, Songs of World War I. And I remember the record beginning with, over there, send the words. And it's, we're going to go over there and we're going to lick those guys and everything's going to be peachy.
I love that song.
Yeah. Except when they got over there, he played other songs. And I don't know why this one resonated with me to such a degree, but it's called The Bells of Hell. And it goes, the bells of hell go ting-a-ling-a-ling for you, but not for me. And all the little devils, how they sing-a-ling-a-ling, they've got the goods on me. O death, where is thy sting-a-ling-a-ling, or grave thy victory? The bells of hell go ting-a-ling-a-ling for you, but not for me. Basically, you're getting killed. At least I'm still alive. And just the sense of fatalism in that compared to the first song just knocked me for a loop. Well, I took 2 years of world history. That is the only thing I remember about world history is World War I. It gave me this visceral grasp of what that was about. So that is what inspired me, that maybe if I used these songs, number one, it would turn the kids on to the songs if they knew what the heck they were about. So that's my number one goal. But number two, I can teach history, and it gives you this hook to kind of understand. Even if you don't remember the dates and the names, you get this sense, oh yeah, they fought the Civil War because. And a lot of kids today don't even know what the Civil War was fought for. They don't know what century it was in.
They don't know history.
No. So this was an idea I had, and I took it to my local Kennebunk school. I live in Kennebunk and have for about almost 30 years, and I'm sorry, I just whacked that mic. So I took it to my local principal, and she said, yeah, that's a great idea. And so I started developing these programs. And for this was mid to late 80s, and for the next 25 years, I went to schools and taught history through music.
That's wonderful.
So, and I've worked here in Biddeford-Saco and, worked all over Maine. And it's very fulfilling. And I've also worked with lots of adults in different venues. So recently, the Unitarian Universalist Church called me and asked if I would like to participate in their Martin Luther King breakfast this year. And that's why the two of us are sitting here.
Yeah.
And when is that breakfast?
I'm going
It'll be on January 19th at 8:30 at the First Parish UU congregation in Kennebunk, which is, I think the address is 114 Main Street, right by the library in
You
downtown.
can't miss it.
You can't miss it.
miss
The big white building with the tower and the bell that goes, the Paul Revere bell that goes off every hour. So we'll be doing a lovely little breakfast. And one of the things we're excited about this year is that a portion of the proceeds are going to go to benefit the York County Shelter Program.
Oh, that's great. They
Right.
need it.
We're so excited to do that and to support them. So that's the other reason that we want to bring some awareness around issues of justice and injustice, and certainly with Monica's expertise around civil rights movement, and also then the history piece.
It's a good time for
It's
that.
a very good time for it, and recognizing that the civil rights movement is continuing. We have not won that war in the civil rights movement on so many different levels, that what we're seeing happening is yet another example of how
Unbelievable.
we need to, how we need to just sort of step up and address issues of injustice and fairness in our country and in our world.
and in
Ultimately.
ourselves.
And in ourselves, absolutely, to challenge that for ourselves.
Unbelievable.
So we're excited. It's our 13th Martin Luther King breakfast. As I'm
It's a
new
Monday?
it's a Monday on Martin Luther King Day. I'm new to the congregation, so this will be my first time with them. I hear Monica's been around. She's been there a couple
I actually
times.
did one even before those 13 years. I think I did one about 20 years ago, so but I haven't done one since.
They have
so-
wonderful programs in that church.
Thank you. We're very excited. We try to offer as much things, not only for our congregants, but really, we are a big part of the community, and
And
we
you know
like to
that's-
have our doors open to people.
It's good timing, especially what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
I have something I would be happy to share with you all. This is a lovely place to be able to say it. It just so happens that my son is involved in a program that comes out of USM Radio, their public radio station, and it's called Safe Space Radio, where they talk about the things that would be easy. We would worry about less if we could talk about them more.
Oh, wonderful.
That's so true. People are afraid to say what they think.
Exactly.
Even your neighbor
Exactly.
won't say what she's thinking. And I want to say, come on, say it.
Right.
We've got to say it. How are we going to solve it if we don't say it? Even if we differ,
Right. Absolutely.
we might solve something.
Yeah,
Well, and
because
they
we can't,
yes.
if we don't dialogue about
No.
it, if we don't open ourselves to hear other people's perspectives and hear other points of view, we're the ones that ultimately suffer. And we sort of stay in our own insular little world. So it sounds like, Monica, you have.
And they did a series just recently, just finished, on racism in Maine. And it was so well done. I listened to everyone, and I just want to encourage people to look up Safe Space Radio. And there's a whole list of topics. They've talked about everything from gender issues
I'm
to
gonna write
child
that right
abuse
down.
to, but this last session they just did was on, I think there are seven or eight, maybe 9 programs on racism, and on racism in Maine in particular. So the thing that is important to remember is racism is something that we have a race too. We're white, and we have all this baggage from our culture that we're afraid to even talk about. So that, anyway, I just wanted to use this to plug that as a wonderful learning experience for people if they're interested in ways to come to grips more with racism, especially us as white people who sometimes we're clueless. We're often clueless.
I think racism has gotten worse lately than what it was before. We never thought of it before, at least I didn't. But now it's right in front of your face all the time.
And I think it was probably there. It was just underground, because we were all nice. Everyone had to, you don't say those things. And I think people are saying things, and unfortunately, we're hearing truly what people think and what they believe. And that's hurtful and damaging to so many other people. So I think Monica's example and her example in her work and her music is really one of those ways that we can get out there and say we need to talk about these things and use our all of our senses and our bodies to learn.
And what a nice way to say it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Tell us more about your how you got into history, and would you sing something too?
I would, and I was thinking that I could talk a little about why I am using these songs to teach about Martin Luther King. These people came here mostly, almost all, under duress. They were brought here as slaves. They did not come here of their own free will and under terrible conditions. And one of the few things they had that they brought with them was their culture. And even that, to a great degree, was denied them. They come here, their names are taken away, you're not allowed to speak those languages anymore. You're among all these people from other tribes who don't necessarily have your same customs. But the music of Africa is very distinctive, as many cultures' music are. And the music is very much group music. It's an agrarian society, so like you'd find the same in Greece or Turkey. There's music for work, music to get out in the fields. The thing that's really interesting about African music is the rhythm and the way the rhythms are used, which is mainly quite different from typical European music. The European tradition tended to take all that out.
Now, say from village to village, would it be different music?
It might very well be. However, there's an underlying unity of style of culture, that the music is it might be different languages, but the rhythmic and the way that notes are used, an African song or an African American song, which I certainly know better than an African song. If I sang, Paul and Silas bound in jail, got no money to go their bail. All right? I'm singing the notes. But if you sing this more in an African American style, it'll be Paul and Silas bound in jail. And you've got all those little in-between notes, and bound in jail, got no money for to go their bail. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on. And you just get this whole different feeling from the same basic song.
Now, nobody taught you that.
Well, yeah, I just learned it from listening.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate when I was young as I said, I woke up to folk music kind of early in life. And then I was fortunate enough to actually hear a number of African American groups singing freedom songs, singing about their lives and about what was going on. And I was very tuned into that. And then spirituals, I did not grow up in a black church. So there are many layers of this. A person who grew up in that has a repertoire of style that I will never possess. It's just, I'm still a white girl singing this stuff, it's okay. But there's a certain underlying feeling to it that, yes, I can certainly relate to, and it moves me, and I can emulate it. It's just part of my musical vocabulary now. But again, I'm still just a white girl singing these spirituals. But these are spirituals. Okay, so going back to the history. So when these slaves were brought here and they're working in the fields, the only way to make it bearable is to have some way to have unity among yourselves and to pass this time doing this miserable job of picking cotton or growing rice or whatever it might be. So these songs are sung in the field, they're sung in church, they are given the Christian religion, which is telling them that you are meant to be a slave. slavery's in the Bible, and, God said you're a slave and you're going to stay a slave. And so, but in those churches, they pick up on certain stories. They pick up on Moses. They pick up on Joshua at the Battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down, and maybe someday this too will happen to us. And they also take the fact that there might be a better life after this. Mm-hmm. So those spirituals are sung in this culture for all these years.
Mm-hmm. And let me just,
yes.
For a moment, so theologically, we would call that liberation theology, in terms of how we take stories from the Bible in order to lift people up. And the African American community is really well known for this concept of liberation theology.
Exactly, exactly.
It's nice to know.
Yeah. So that song I sang before originally was called "Keep Your Hand on the Plow," and basically it was, if you're plowing a field, that's rough work, and it's hard to hold on to the plow if the mule is going fast, So the idea was, just Paul and Silas, who are two characters from the Bible, are in jail. They have no money to go their bail. That's very American. But and then it says, "The very moment I thought I was lost, the dungeon shook and the chains fell off." And so anyway, and it was called "Keep Your Hand on the Plow and Hold On Here on Earth, because there will be redemption in the life to come." But when the freedom songs started, what they did when the freedom movement began is they just took these songs, everyone knew them, and changed the words a little bit. So that song becomes "Keep Your Eyes on the Prize." And what's the prize? The prize is freedom. And they use those verses about Paul and Silas, but then they add some more. So there it goes. "The very moment I thought," I already sang that one, "thought I was lost, the dungeon shook and the chains fell off. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on now. The only thing we did wrong was staying in the wilderness too long. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, and the one thing we did right was the day we started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on.
Well, you do that very well.
Well, thank you.
You see why we're so excited to have her on?
I know.
This is exactly why we're so excited to have her as our guest.
Thank you so much.
Now, they created that themselves, though.
Exactly. Give you another excellent example. Most of these songs were spirituals that came from various places. But for instance, there was, as time went on, and these young people are getting imprisoned, they're in marches, they're sitting in, all these things. So they're all together. So, the songs are used to keep up spirits and to communicate too. So there is a song called Calypso Freedom, and Day-o, day-o. Well, it's freedom, freedom, freedom come and it won't be long. Freedom, freedom, freedom come and it won't be long. And you can just make up any old verses. I was realizing this morning I don't actually know any verses to that song, but I'll just take the ones I just did. Well, I know that how does it go? I know I stayed in, I know the one thing I did wrong. Freedom come and it won't be long. I stayed in the wilderness a little too long. Freedom. So it's just, it doesn't matter. You can just make them up on the moment. And that's what happened. And so, if you were in a jail in X town, and X was the name of the chief of police, his name was what was in that song. You know, it doesn't matter. Whatever they're used, they're used. And I'll do another one. I guess I can use the guitar for one. And this one is sad in a way, but it speaks to what you were just saying, that, you know, we're not done here. So this song is called "Oh Freedom." It goes like this. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me, over me. Before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord. Now that song originally said, you know, no more weeping, no more moaning, and it comes from right after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued. So it's about abolition. Mm-hmm. So when I would talk to kids in school, I said, you know, I heard this song sung by people when I was a teenager. What the heck were they still singing this for? Why did they still need to sing this song? And they changed the words slightly, so it was no more segregation, no more segregation, and no more Jim Crow, no more Jim Crow. And I would say no more racism, no more racism, and no more fear, and no more, you know, let's open up the gates. And so these songs, they have not lost their relevance for people. We Shall Overcome is sung all over the world, all over the world.
I wonder what he would think if he was living today.
I don't know. Yeah,
Maybe things would be a little different.
might be. Yeah, it's possible. I don't know.
I think, you know, my vision of Martin Luther King and so many of our activists is that they would still be on those front lines. Mm-hmm. That, you know what, some of the issues might have changed, but it was in their blood, it was in their bones, and there was nothing that was going to stop them from standing up and from speaking out as much as possible. So I envision that if Martin Luther King were still alive, he'd be right there. He'd be down in Ferguson. He'd be over in Cleveland. You know, he'd be marching and rallying the cry.
Well, and a lot of those people are still there. John Lewis is still in Congress, and Andrew Young was the mayor of Atlanta. Is that right? I have that name right? I think so. And yeah, these things are still going on. Mm-hmm. I wanted to share a song that is not African American, but I've always loved it, and it relates to that. We were just talking before the program began about how there was a bombing just recently in Colorado.
Yep.
What was that?
Yep, at the NAACP offices.
Right, and they were right next to the NAACP office, and didn't get a whole lot of press. And one of the songs I definitely want to sing, I definitely plan to sing at the breakfast, is called Birmingham Sunday. Mm. And it's about the bombing in Birmingham, which happened the same year as the March on Washington. Okay, so this is, that summer, there's all this hope, and we're really getting somewhere. And within a few months, I believe it was October of that year, a church in Birmingham was bombed and 4 young girls were killed. Now, I was 12 years old when that happened,